This is where the fun begins.
Hey gang, thank you guys so much for clicking on another one of my videos. I appreciate the support lately so much. Love you guys. Hope you guys are doing well. Today we're taking a close look at Ivara. In my opinion, one of the most overlooked warframes in the entire game, by far. Ivara provides insane precision damage, which with some intelligent modding and loadout choices, we can advance into doing really good AoE damage. If you're someone who appreciates good marksmanship, planning, and execution, both in the metaphorical and literal sense of execution, Ivara is absolutely a frame we should give a try. On top of her excellent damage, though, she excels at utility, being one of the best spy frames in the game. Really good at conservation, which is like the open world hunting stuff, and she is, in my opinion, the single best fishing frame in the game. Ivara is a frame you really don't want to miss out on, and it's totally worth giving a try. Despite what you've maybe heard, I think this frame is excellent, and I'm going to make that case for you today. So thank you guys for watching, thank you for clicking, and let's jam. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Ivara's passive gives her 50 meters of enemy radar. This is actually a pretty incredible passive. Obviously, you can get enemy radar through mods like Animal Instinct and stuff like that, but getting 50 meters, that is a large amount, and it allows us to plan more effectively, especially when we're dealing with a frame like Ivara, who really wants enemies to come to her. It allows us to properly manipulate spawns, detect where enemies are, and set up properly. So overall, this is a really good passive for Ivara's kit. Maybe it wouldn't be so useful on other frames, but for Ivara, it works incredibly well. Now, Ivara's first ability is a bit of a mouthful, so you're just gonna have to bear with me here. Our first arrow, granted, so tapping cycles through the arrows, and you're gonna hold cast in order to fire one. I've selected sleep arrow, so all sleep arrow does is it'll sleep enemies within the radius here. This opens them up to finishers, which is pretty strong, especially if you're using a finisher build. But if you're not, it's kind of whatever. It's good for stacking melee crescendo, and it's got decent range, so it's pretty good for conservation targets, stealth missions. It's a pretty good sleep ability overall. Nothing insane, nothing remarkable, but solid duration, solid range, solid use cases. Next, we have the cloak arrow. This is the purple tip arrow, and we just fire it, and whatever it sticks to, it'll make a nice cloak bubble of safety around. This is a max range build, so this is a little misleading of how useful it'll be, but you could set one up too, right? This creates a little haven of safety for your teammates. If you've got a teammate you're trying to protect, or a teammate goes down, you want to pop this on top of them, it'll be really useful. If you're trying to regain some energy, because our channeled invisibility ability actually doesn't allow us to regain energy from things like Wellspring, Energy Nexus, so on and so forth. So stealth arrow is really good for situations like that. It's just another really good supportive ability. Dash wire arrow makes these little dash wires from point A to point B. Got a pretty good max range of 100 meters, and so from where you stand to where that arrow lands, you've got yourself a dash wire. In my opinion, it's quite underrated. With the augment, it becomes like a really solid ability, but the ability to sit above things like nullifiers, things like Toxin Eximus, stuff like that, it keeps you out of harm's way in such an effective manner, and it really sets up for Ivara's playstyle. Again, if you're playing a different Warframe, dash wire just doesn't feel as useful. But when you're playing Ivara, it's a very complete kit that comes together. And then next is noise arrow, which I'm gonna have to turn off or turn on the enemy's AI and show you what it does. Basically, you fire an arrow, and it doesn't quite alert enemies, but it makes them suspicious of the noise's location, which causes them to kind of try to go find it. I'll say it does. There we go. Okay. So yeah, as you can see, all the enemies are kind of grouping around the arrow. This is good if you're trying to get enemies grouped together to then, sleep and then kill them all, right? Like, that's kind of what the gameplay loop would look like there. I'll admit, as someone with a lot of time on Ivara, I just don't use the noise arrow very often. The rest of them do come up pretty often and have their use cases, but admittedly, the noise arrow is the least useful of them, in my opinion. Good for some affinity farms. Again, all these arrows do have uses. It's just a matter of you have to be quite the good Ivara player to use them, and even if you are a good Ivara player, it might not come up in your playstyle. So QUIVER is just really good. Again, really underrated part of our kit, I think. It's nice when you have a lot of abilities in one, but when 3 out of 4 of them are quite solid, I'm not going to sit here and complain, especially with the augment. And a quick little tip before we get to the augment is that you can actually stealth yourself using the cloak arrow by sticking it to a sentinel companion. You can also stick this to your teammates too if you've got a baby tenno you're trying to protect. certain defense objectives that move around a lot, you can stick the stealth arrow to them, and hopefully I don't mess this up. I'm not going to want to use my scoped weapon here because that's going to make it a little bit hard to aim, which is part of why I don't do this tech often. It's quite cumbersome for a Warframe that already has stealth abilities. But yeah, all you're going to do is jump, aim, glide, and fire the stealth arrow, and you now have a Invis Sentinel that is giving you and anything around you invisibility for quite a good duration too. This isn't even like a crazy duration build. Now you'll notice that I can actually like outpace my Sentinel a little bit, but that's only because I have parkour velocity shards on. I don't think the average Warframe build could outpace that. Likewise, this is also a max range build, so this tech becomes a little less useful if you're going a low range build, which is like mine. But yeah, it's a good piece of tech. It's something unique to Ivara. Being able to make mass areas or certain particular targets invisible is just really useful, and it's really, honestly, it's a fun gimmick I do with my friends where I stick an invis arrow to them, especially if we're doing conservation together. I've got some baby Tenno of them helping out, and they can't go invis, so I use this to help them stealth when they're trying to do conservation. It's pretty fun. Now, Quiver's actually got two augments, one that I rate very highly and one that I generally wouldn't recommend, but definitely has some sort of place, I'd say. Empowered Quiver augment. Dashwire grants allies 100% critical damage. This scales with power strength. Cloak Arrow has 100% chance to prevent status effects. Also scales with power strength, but generally you shouldn't be going below 100%, so not a big deal. And then Power of 3, Quiver fires 3 arrows and consumes 20 more energy, which is a flat value. So if you have, your efficiency does not matter here. That is a good build for like sleep arrows, I would say. If you're trying to sleep an entire room, that would be an effective way to do that with a max range build. But even then, some of the arrows, it's a sphere, right? The ability targets in a sphere. So you'd be like, so there'd be overlap there. This augment, in my opinion, is generally not worth using. But if you find enjoyment of it, it lets you create bigger stealth areas. It lets you sleep bigger areas, but for the other 2 arrows, in my opinion, it just doesn't do much. Empowered Quiver, however, I run on every single Ivara build, basically. It gives Dashwire a whole new realm of usefulness. It makes it useful in the first place, you could make the case. I still like Dashwire regardless, but this makes Dashwire really good. It lets your teammates get that critical damage as well, and same with Cloak Arrow. I use this whenever a stray heat proc, stray toxin proc hits me. I'm able to quickly swap to my Cloak Arrow, bust it out at my feet, and cleanse any status effects. So I really like Empowered Quiver. Power of 3, just not a huge fan of, but definitely Empowered Quiver you should be giving a try if you're going to play this frame. Now, Navigator is also a mouthful. Bit of a complicated ability. A lot of Ivara players don't really use it, and I think that's just a huge mistake. You take control of any non-hit scan projectile. This can range from arrows to Zenistar discs to certain Warframe abilities even. In this case, I'll be using the Daiku Prime and the Grimoire. Both the Grimoire Alt Fire and Main Fire, I think actually, can be controlled by Navigator. For every second in the air, you're going to be draining energy, and you're taking control of it, and you can, manipulate it around. You can press left click to speed it up, right click to slow it down. Piloting some of these projectiles, especially the arrows and the fast moving ones. I don't know if you guys ever played Lego Star Wars, but it's like, imagine like you're 10 years old again and you're playing that one pod racing level in the original Lego Star Wars. Yeah, that's how I feel. So let's just take a look at how it works. So we press 2 and Ivara prepares to control the arrow. Fire it, and as you can see, I'm able to move around. If I press right click, I kind of hit the brakes. If I hit left click, I probably won't be able to control it. Yeah, there you go. So it clips right through the map right there. And with the Grimoire, much more manageable projectile. As you can see, this is me with the brakes. This is me accelerated. This is way easier to control. And you can see that I've got my damage ramping up there in the bottom right where the Navigator icon is. And yeah, this is it. You're just controlling this. It's going to drain the energy really quick, but Ivara has incredibly high base energy. So if you take Primed Flow, stuff like that, you're able to channel this for quite a while, and once I let go, it'll continue on its normal path for a little bit before dissipating like it normally would. So Navigator's a funky one, there's no doubt about it. I mean, it's half a meme ability and it's half serious. If you want to make it work, it's going to take a lot more skill. I'm just going to be very straight up, but the build I'm going to show you today actually incorporates it in a more casual sense, which is really good. Navigator has some levels of inconsistency with punch through and the ability to control it. and a couple other things, but overall this ability is great. You build some duration, you build some efficiency, you can control a projectile for a long time. That damage gets really high, and it kind of helps with weapons that normally struggle with killing multiple targets. You just have to be, you know, if I'm using the die queue like I'm showing you, if there's any way to slow the projectile speed, maybe you've got a Riven or something, that might be the way to do it. But Navigator is just a really fun ability. Experiment with what you can control. You can also, you know, you can control the arrows from Quiver. Right, this is my dash wire right here. Pop it right there. And it didn't quite connect because, oh, there we go. Yeah. So, get experimental with Navigator. I'm not gonna say that I've experienced everything with it, but it's just such a fun ability. Give it a shot. The augment for Navigator is called Piercing Navigator. Each hit increases the projectile's critical chance by 10% up to a max of 50%, and you get additional 3 projectile punch through. If you are doing a Navigator build, you basically really should just be taking this. I will say I wish the critical chance scaled with power strength. That'd be really nice. It feels a little bit outdated in that way. The projectile punch through is quite good. I'm just really bummed that it doesn't scale with power strength. I really feel like it should. But if you are using Navigator as your main way of killing things on Ivara, Piercing Navigator is great. I mean, 50% crit chance. Who's gonna complain about that? It might even be additive. I don't fully remember, but yeah. If you're doing a Navigator build, go for Piercing. Otherwise, I don't think it's worth it. It does quite a bit of heavy lifting on its own without the augment, and you're going to need some mod room, assuming, you know, you're going to use the Empowered Quiver augment like I do. And if you're using Artemis bow, there's an augment for that as well. Maybe you'll infiltrate. You just don't want to overbear your build with augments. But Piercing Navigator is definitely really good if you have a Navigator-centric build. Ivara's third ability is Prowl, a channeled ability where Ivara drains energy per second, turns invisible, is able to pickpocket enemies, actually. Now, normally you walk up to an enemy and that little shadow pops up. In this case, I can only pickpocket ammo, energy, and health, but normally it rolls their drop table. And I guess this is technically rolling their drop table. Walk up real close. I've got a low range build here, and it will just consume some energy and pickpocket. So that's pretty good. It's very slow. In modern Warframe, that just doesn't hold up. But if you're trying to get like very specific drops from very specific enemies, Ivara actually does like a pretty solid job. Additionally, when you are in Prowl, you get additional headshot damage, quite a like significant multiplier too. In this build I've got going, it is currently about 2.5, a little higher than 2.5 of a headshot multiplier. So that's pretty good. Now this is the Prowl is good. Okay, you can pickpocket, you can. You get bonus headshot damage, which we like, and you're invisible. That's all great. The biggest problem with Prowl, and I think the reason that people don't play Ivara, this is a kind of a tall claim I'm making, it inhibits a ton of your shift-related and control-related mobility options. So you cannot slide. It'll break the Prowl. You can crouch, can't slide though. It'll break Prowl. You can roll, you cannot sprint. It'll break Prowl. That means, as you would guess it, you cannot do the most sacred thing a Warframe can do, which is bullet jump. It'll instantly break that Prowl. Slido 9 gets the bullet jump everywhere. Loki and Ash get the bullet jump everywhere. Poor Ivara is stuck in, I don't know, 2005. Lord knows when she came out. And it's just a little depressing. A couple of pieces of tech is obviously using your dash wires properly. She can still wall skip like this, and I have a ton of parkour velocity shards. So as you can see, I can still skip up against the wall. If you have really good movement, I don't really think that Ivara will make you feel punished, but it definitely sucks, and it definitely makes so less people are going to want to play this frame. When you take bullet jumping away from a Warframe player, they don't feel good. That's just, we know that. That's observable from things like call missions. That's observable from things like Archwing. Like when you take away a core mechanic like bullet jumping, it just doesn't feel great. So I think that would be a potential rework space that I would look into, maybe an augment of some kind. Because personally, I've gotten used to it at this point, but I just want more people experiencing all the frames that Warframe has to offer. And Prowl robbing you of mobility in that way is just really punishing. Also, Ivara, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, is just overall her walk speed is slower in Prowl. So you're basically going to be spamming these rolls here, or potentially using your dash wires while jumping, like I said there. My counter to this, personally, has been when I have places I need to go, I just have a bunch of parkour velocity installed on my Ivara. So when I'm unstealthed, I am on stealth and I'm in danger, but I'm moving incredibly fast because of those proport velocity shards. And then when I land, I'll just throw the prowl out. Or when I have no more inputs to put in that will break prowl, I put the prowl out on the way down. If you have a bigger range build, you can also use the stealth arrow. You can use that stealth arrow tech I showed you. Likewise, you are invisible during navigator, so that will keep you safe. But just keep in mind that prowl is something you're going to have to get used to, especially if you've gotten really accustomed to Warframe's movement system. The augment for Prowl is called Infiltrate. Ivara is able to bypass laser barriers and gains 25% movement speed. This 25% movement speed scales with power strength, which sounds pretty good. However, in my build, where I've got, like, I think almost 400% strength, Infiltrate only then gives you 100% movement speed. And your movement is still inhibited, by the way. Your movement, you cannot bullet jump, you cannot slide, you cannot sprint. So Infiltrate's good for spy content if you enjoy that, and if you do walk around for some reason, you can go for that. But generally, when I see Ivara players go for Infiltrate, it is just going to be for that spy content. This augment's fine, and you can run it if you want, but I think if you get accustomed to Ivara's rolling-based movement, moving quickly, and then re-stealthing, so on and so forth, I don't think Infiltrate will be necessary for you. So next we're taking a look at Artemis bow. This is Ivara's exalted bow and arrow, and it's pretty solid. If we tap fire, we send a vertical barrage of arrows, and if we hold, it becomes more horizontal. You can kind of like release in the middle there to get a diagonal shot, and it consumes not energy per second, but energy per shot, which is better or worse depending on your perspective. So when you're hitting, if you want to try to hit a lot of targets, you can kind of fan it out like this, but my experience with horizontal shots through my testing has been pretty negative. I think it's usually better to go for, you know, shots like these. As you can see, I'm able to, this is a very mid build I'm using right now. This is just for like demonstration. And I'm able to kind of smoke these dudes pretty easily. Now granted, this is good, right, but it's single target. I would like to one day see Ivara's Artemis bow function at the same level of like a Cyto 9 neutralizer. I think that'd be great. I'm going to show you an augment that kind of helps with a playstyle like that, but Artemis bow is not bad. Is it the worst of the exalted weapons? I mean, maybe you can make the case for it, and a lot of Ivara players, like myself, are going to opt for using different weapons, and that's the case of weapon creep. I mean, these Incarnans are absolutely bonkers, right? So yeah, like, there's a case to be made for Artemis bow. It's quite strong. For my personal build, it becomes too much of an energy tax for what I'm trying to do, and makes it sometimes kind of uncomfortable to play. But Artemis bow is really good, and we're going to take a look at the augment in what my opinion is how I would personally be playing with Artemis bow. The augment for Artemis bow is called Concentrated Arrow. You fire a single arrow with plus 25% base critical chance on full charge, and an additional 50% chance on weak points. On weak points, the arrow explodes in a 7-meter radius, which scales with strength on the weak points. However, it removes punch through. So this one's a bit of a pain to work, or to make work. Also, the strong emphasis on weak point hits in certain settings, it's just not really realistic. But here, I'll show you what it looks like. I'll take a few shots here as well. So as you can see, like that's not too bad, right? Especially if we get like longbow sharp shot stacking. I mean, like, okay, right? Like, enemies are getting knocked around a little bit. But for having to land perfect headshots over and over and consuming energy, by the way, I don't think it's the most, you know, this doesn't feel like a neutralizer, right? After playing Cyto 9, a lot of my feelings towards Ivara have changed, but this frame is just, like, so fun. I mean, it's insane. So I'll show you kind of what it looks like with a full setup, because I think that'll actually be quite helpful. So we're going to activate Prowl, Nourish, which is what I use on this build in particular. I'll hop on one of my dash wires, which has empowered quiver, and we'll fire a sleep arrow as well, using the right click here, which is what you can do with Artemis bow. So just like that, they're all slept. A couple of the trash mobs die, heavier mobs fall down, and they are mostly, I mean, that guy's just barely hanging on. Goodbye, buddy. So yeah, with buffs, you can really make Artemis bow work. It's just that in the modern landscape of Warframe, it's a little bit more difficult to make inferior weapons shine, and especially when we're working with what, in my opinion, are 3 very good abilities in Prowl, Navigator, and Quiver. It makes Artemis bow, especially with Precision Intensify beating the game, it makes Artemis bow kind of just fall short. So We're gonna move on to the demonstration and modding and all that good stuff, but don't take this as I think Ivara is bad, because that's quite the opposite of what I'm trying to prove. But I also do believe in honesty and integrity and giving what I really believe. I just love Ivara so much despite those things, and that's kind of the case I'm trying to make here. So let's move on to modding, loadouts, all that good stuff. Alright, so we're going to take a look at my Ivara build, and I'm going to try to explain a few things here. Again, I'm trying to teach you how to mod, not what to mod. So note that my builds will look different than yours, very likely. This is the main build I use on Ivara. It's really boring. This is a weapons platform build, with just low efficiency, low range. You guys have seen this kind of stuff before. I wouldn't be surprised. We're also using Roar. Again, pretty boring, but we're going to go over more like creative HELMINTH options later. I just think that Ivara is a frame who kind of is about dealing damage. The support that she provides doesn't need power strength, right? The stealth is stealth. The dash wire wants power strength, I guess, but the sleep doesn't need it either. So the support she provides is kind of like, strength is kind of mute to those things, but what strength does for us is it gives us a stronger Roar. It gives us a higher Navigator multiplier. It gives us a higher crit damage multiplier on Empowered Quiver, and it gives us a higher headshot multiplier on PROWL. I mean, these are just things that we want when we're playing Ivara, especially when we're not using ARTEMIS bow. So ARTEMIS bow isn't even that great in the first place. So we want to be able to channel as much, strength as we can into whatever bow or sniper, or even just like marksmanship rifle we're going to decide to use. So Worthy Camaraderie is really good here, because we are emphasizing headshots, whether that is just for the sake of PROWL, or whether that is for the sake of ARTEMIS bow. Worthy Camaraderie here is just a great choice here. But you can go for whatever you want in the aura slot. It's not too big of a deal. Intensify, or Umbral Intensify in this case, just power strength, more power strength, more power strength. Duration is really important. It helps a lot with any kind of buffs. So Roar in this case. It helps PROWL. It keeps that cost really low, which is nice. And it also helps with Navigator's drain per second as well, which is really nice. Empowered Quiver here, again, explained. I use this in like every Ivara build that I can. It's just incredibly good. Primed Flow, because Ivara has insanely good base energy, so we want to expand onto that. Primed Continuity, the duration helps with, again, keeping our PROWL low cost. Roar up all the time. Navigator helps us out. Blind Rage, we don't care for efficiency. We're not spam casting anything really. We're just setting up our wires, using the occasional Navigator. PROWL stays up, Roar stays up. The energy economy is super healthy here. Multi-Augmented and Multi-Crepuscular are not exactly very audacious choices for Ivara, but they're very strong. You're invis, so you're gaining that power strength plus final critical chance or critical damage. This is just great. Augmented is good, especially on Ivara. Usually you're going to be staying in like more duration, endurance-based missions, so you're going to always be getting all of those kills. This is the ARTEMIS bow build. It's a bit of a mess, understandably, but I think this is the build I did for the demonstration. I removed Navigator, which you don't have to do. I use that for Nourish, because Nourish, again, most boring choices of all time. I'll go over a few different ones if you want, but Ivara is ultimately just a damage frame, to me at least. And what Nourish does is the energy multiplier helps us keep ARTEMIS bow up and running, which you really want. The change here is lower duration, lower strength, but investing into range. That way concentrated arrow can actually blow up and do a good amount, of damage without like needing anything crazy, right? The range allows it to 17.5 meters. That's not too bad. That is neutralizer ricochet range, but it costs us, it's an overextended, which sucks. But this build I think is quite good, and I've gotten some really impressive numbers with this build. It's just not what I play, because again, I don't really like ARTEMIS bow that much. I've got a pillage build here, which is pretty similar. It's made for ARTEMIS bow. I've experimented with this. I think that pillage is a cool option because ARTEMIS bow just struggles with damage, so pillage is stripping armor. But this was a build before armor got the changes that it got, so a little bit less relevant. Talking about my loadout, I'm always going to choose, in the demonstration today, I'm probably going to go with the DQ Prime, modded for Blast. Now, Blast, if you guys don't know, heat and cold, right, mixed together, it allows almost any weapon to become AoE with decent status chance. The DQ's got pretty good status chance. I'm able to fairly consistently proc Blast, 60% chance, not bad. Longbow Sharp Shot, Elementalist, Scope, along with the Amalgam mod for the DQ that gives me headshot multiplier. Not gonna say this build's perfect. Vial Acceleration is really nice, strongly recommend that. But I like to use the Vectis. I like the Paragal a lot. So whatever precision weapon you want out of Ivara, go ahead. If you want to use AoE on Ivara, I don't care. Have fun. That's what's important. But I generally recommend trying to take advantage of that PROWL multiplier because I think it's really good. We're using a combo here that is quite popular. I've given a name to it. It's called Ceramic Outburst. Ceramic Outburst essentially involves using a strong secondary that can utilize crit stats and the Ceramic Dagger Incarnate. So, secondary outburst here, on swapping to secondary weapon, consume all combo multipliers to increase secondary weapon critical chance and critical damage by 20% per combo consumed for 30 seconds. This is a very basic power strength increasing build. It's got Yahoo Canonical, which is just killing enemies reduces the armor and shields of other enemies within infinity range by 5%. And then the alternate fire increases your ability strength by up to 60% for 20 seconds. So, and then Ceramic Dagger, we use the one that has increased base damage by 100, and then on primary kill +1 initial combo. So what this involves is getting a ton of kills with IQ Prime, which converts into Ceramic Dagger combo. Then we use Sleep Arrow and a variety of other methods to get finishers to stack up to max initial combo. Then, when we pull out the Grimoire and Navigator with it, it has insane crit chance and crit damage. This is just really basic. Frames like Mesa use Ceramic Outburst. This is just really basic tech. This is like the first kind of stepping stone if you're trying to understand how loadouts work. This is kind of what you're looking for. So, Archon Shards and Companions, I personally prefer, I just used Worm Prime to do the demonstration with the Stealth Arrow. I personally prefer the Panzer Profile. I know, again, yeah, real creative, dude. But getting viral onto the enemy without me having to pull the trigger is really nice. Maturai is just for power strength. Xeneric is hard to benefit from because we don't, PROWL blocks Wellspring from working properly. So Maturai is just my choice. I also play her in Cascade, so Maturai is just really useful. The Artemis Bow build is nothing crazy. I use electricity for that on-command damage, and the CC is admittedly kind of nice. I do use Acuity, which makes it a little bit all or nothing. Same with Galvanized Scope. It makes it a little bit all or nothing with the build, but God, when it hits all, it is so nice. And if you're an Ivara player, I'm assuming you got nothing to lose, and you're willing to make these high-risk investments to do insane damage. It feels really good. I like it a lot. One big modding tip is that PROWL breaks if your weapon is noisy. This is another big problem with Ivara. If you want to use a fun weapon like a sniper rifle, like the Vectis, which I really enjoy, the Paragil, which I enjoy, that Exila slot needs to go to Hush, which is really annoying. Like really annoying, because at some points you would want, especially on the Paragil, you would probably want that ammo conversion, but you don't get to run it, which is really unfortunate. In our demonstration today, we're probably going to use the DIQ. I haven't fully decided, but yeah, this is my loadout. Real basic stuff. Companion is totally up to you. I'm just on a dash wire a lot, so I like to have a companion that's on the ground getting to work. I explained Ceramic Outburst to you, which I'll probably make a smaller video on. Maturai is a great focus school. Focus school here is not super relevant. Artemis Bro, hello? I should rename it to that. Artemis Bow is a high risk, high reward build, which I think is fun for Ivara. I think it's on theme, so that's what I'm gonna go for. And yeah, we're gonna move on to the demonstration, playstyle loop, all that good stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and let's get to the fun part. Uh-oh, no fun yet. One second, we got an important thing to touch on here. So my full tile forged here. I've got 3 parkour velocity shards tile forged. That's a lot, you might be asking yourself, and hey, it's what I find necessary. Usually I like to play Ivara in like slower paced content, but when I need to move around really fast, this just helps. This helps in PROWL, rolling around, and also out of PROWL when I'm bolting from one spot to another. I also promised I would give you guys more creative HELMINTH options. I can't promise you the world, but I can promise that they're at least decent. Breach Surge is great if you are doing like more single target weapons, even if you are doing blast. What Breach Surge provides is kind of, it gives you like a buy one get one free deal on your bullets, so that's really useful if you're using a sniper rifle, because now you've just fired like a 50 million damage shot into someone's skull, and now it's and it's gonna fly to someone else and deal 150 million, and that's just fun. The only problem with Breach Surge is, again, it's going to require you to mod for range, which I don't want to do personally. Additionally, it has to be recast in every group that you're fighting, which to me is just like an unnecessary burden on my energy economy. I don't like that so much. Dispensary can be fine if you're camping out. If you have that more like passive playstyle, I could totally see that being enjoyable. And then one of the big ones, where are you, my friend? Silence. First of all, turning off Xmas abilities, and this will require you to build some range. Turning off Xmas abilities turns off the super, like, semi-rare chance that you will die to, like, some weird Xmas about stray shot. So that's really nice. Turning off their abilities is good. This also silences your weapons. And stuns enemies, which you don't need to stun nearly as much because you're going to be invisible. But silence means you don't have to put that hush mod on. So if you value the support, this is great for a real support Ivara if you're building a lot more range. Silence is super nice, and it makes it so you don't have to run the hush mod or the suppress mod or whatever it might be. And then like Zada's Whisper, yeah, real shocker, dude. Like real creative. But again, Helminth is something where you should express yourself, and Ivara is a frame that I don't believe needs a Helminth exactly. So if you decide to not run one, then that's totally the option, or run something that's a little less traditional. God, please help yourself, have fun. But that's about it. We're gonna get on to the demonstration gameplay loop, and we're just gonna have some fun. So I'll see you guys in a second. Alrighty, we're heading into Circulus, the Conjunction Survival node on Lua, Steel Path, level 200s. We will make pretty quick work of them. I'm gonna show you guys kind of how to play Ivara, and I'll be real, we've got some yapping time allotted because the gameplay here is not gonna be the most exciting. Ivara is someone who, in my opinion, is a lot more fun to play. Oh, you need to fall over. Is a lot more fun to play than she is to watch. But let's reload that Paragale. So it's a very campy playstyle, which I think a lot of people have turned away from as we've kind of moved into brain rot frame. So I'll start with a stealth here, build up some sniper combo. So what we're using is a blast sniper. Now, if you're not familiar with how blast snipers work, it's a little bit of an obnoxious playstyle because snipers rely a lot on like highly stacked base damage. Yet you need to be able to consistently proc blast, stacking it up and killing the target. So it's a little bit annoying. You're not gonna able to consistently proc blast every single time, but it's consistent enough, especially when we're using something like the Paragale, which can give us, we don't have to deal with reloading as long as we're landing headshots. The Paragale is just kind of where it's at in this regard. The reason I recommend blast snipers over like Artemis bow, which I know like Artemis bow is a huge part of Ivara's identity, so I understand being upset that I'm not using it for this demonstration. The thing is, what blast allows you to do is it allows you to not have to land headshots for every single shot. It's hit scan, it's easier to land, it's just a lot, in my opinion, it's a lot more fun. So I've got the Panzer just priming everything to be exploded. I've got enough energy to like pretty safely cast Roar, so I'll Sling Strength. And now we are going to begin the setup phase. So we've got some good energy, we're proccing good blast procs, and we're just going to try to find a spot to set up camp. So we're going to want to just hop high, wall latch, and like that. There you go. So now we have high ground against things like nullifiers, Toxin Xmas if we were in Shock Xmas, that guy can't hurt me. Normally he would be able to, right? And now we just sit here and we fish. We fish for blast procs against grouped enemies. That's really it. You kind of want to, again, Ivara is a frame about planning, so if you can reasonably get like, yeah, look at that blast proc, goodness. If you can reasonably get a spot, like as you can see, enemy radar helps me here, right? Ivara's passive helps me in that I can kind of tell that enemies are getting jammed up right there, and Ivara struggles with kills per second. So one thing you can actually end up doing, you get up to 4 dash wires. So what you can do is you can strategically place them throughout an area, despite, if you're just a little shafted by RNG or spawns, you can, like, this frame encourages problem solving. So what I'm going to do here is just kill these enemies, try to get my energy up just a wee bit. I'm going to try to hop back onto my wire here, might have to wall hop to do it. Or you can fire another line and go up and then just hop back to your main one like that. The clipping is pretty good, like it's pretty easy to get back on. And then now here I'll just fire another one and it'll attach like this, so I can look down, kill these enemies like so. With the blast proc I can scoot on over here. And as you can see, I've got a whole like web. This is just how I prefer to play Ivara. I'm not going to say this is the perfect way to do it. Looks like we got an Acolyte, so I'm just going to do a little safety procedure here. I placed that that stealth bubble to make me immune to status effects. He's really, you cornball. So I'm going to blow his brains out. I tried to be creative, but the game did not want me to do that. If I took silence there, Banshee Subsume, then I would have been a lot better off. But no worries, we were invis and we were safe. So one thing to note is that the dash wires that give your crit damage, right? They will update with your strength. So you wanna be casting them pretty consistently. So this one right now is 444% crit damage, which is really good. I mean, it's reflected in the damage numbers that I'm dealing here. But that's like, I want to place a new one, and it's going to give me 456. Likewise, if I'm, dealing with a Fisher bonus or something like that, it'll update there too. And you can give this buff, I've gotten builds where I've gotten 1,000% crit damage, and I can give that to all of my teammates, and their variety of weapons that might even benefit from that crit damage more. Always be mindful about how you place your dash wires. You don't really want them getting clipped by nullifiers. You can kind of fall to your death that way. But once they're set up properly, like, you are just chilling. There's also a case to be made for greedy pull mag subsume. I personally don't believe in that. If you just place it high enough to be out of danger and low enough to have vacuum pick up stuff, like, you're chilling. Again, also having access to 4 dash wires just means that, you can place them at varying heights. Like, as you can see here, I'm utilizing a variety of heights to move around. You also can't, again, you cannot cast subsumed abilities, so you have to like double jump and then hop back onto your zip line. Not a difficult thing to do at all, but it's also why I wouldn't really encourage things like Breach Surge. Because if you have to keep spam casting any kind of debuff ability, then you're going to find that you have to keep doing that double jump, and you don't get to like sit comfortably on your dash wire nearly as much. So I'm going to do one little more quick demonstration of Ceramic Outburst, and then we're going to get out of here because I've fully stacked. I've fully stacked my Ceramic Dagger. I could melee Crescendo with Sleep Arrow or something like that, but let me just take care of these guys real quick. Hop off. You also can't transfer. Oh, whoops. You also can't transfer. Here, buddy. Oh, come on. Goodness. Yeah, I used a Matter Eye, what's it called? I used Void Strike, so I lost all my ability to like stay invis. But you, God, what was I saying? Totally forgot. You can use all sorts of things to stack melee Crescendo. In this case, like Sleep Arrow would be good, but my build has really low range. But all we're gonna do is just stand in a little safe corner. If we want to be immune to statuses, we can, but I don't really care for it. And just observe. So, as you can see, the damage gets quite absurd, and you're just gonna be doing this every once in a while. It'll consume all the stacks. As you can see in the upper right hand there, I've got secondary outburst proccing, and once it's done proccing, I'm just gonna put this away. But yeah, this guy would be dead if he didn't get corrupted. This is no roar as well, and they're just gonna get schmelted. That's with no roar, just the navigator buff. It's pretty absurd. Let's try to get some good blast procs here. There we go. So yeah, this frame's good. Like, you just kind of have to, again, that's a Toxin Eximus, usually very scary, but we're so out of harm's way. And again, this gameplay isn't for everyone. The goal of this video is to reach players who want this playstyle but haven't been able to find it yet. Or maybe give it a try and then decide they like it, right? Just this like a spider in her web type gameplay. Look at this. Look what I've constructed for myself. And that's not even using invis arrows if I decided to use that for my teammates. In this case, I don't have any teammates. But yeah, this is just like, and then, I'm using a weapon that strongly rewards precise gameplay. So I just think that's really fun, and I understand it's not for everyone, but I'm here to show you that it's a game, it's a gameplay loop you can definitely have in a game that normally kind of looks like torrid brain rot occasionally. And no shame to torrid brain rotters if that's how you have fun, dude. I have zero judgment. Please enjoy yourself. And now I'll just do a quick little display of what I mean when I say I have 1 zillion parkour velocity shards equipped. So my prowl breaks here, and I'm just able to absolutely bolt, unless I get caught on every obstacle possible. So what the parkour velocity allows me to do is just move unreasonably fast through the map. from point A to point B, and then when I'm done and uncomfortable, I just re-prowl. Now in this case, I won't have to re-prowl because I'm going towards extraction, but yeah, a little bit of parkour velocity will go quite a long way. Like so. Then I'll just re-prowl in the midair and roll. And that's how I break out of it. Just like that. Prowl, roll. Land safely. Holy! Yeah, okay, there we go. Let's get to the conclusory bit. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Hopefully that showed kind of what I'm trying to show you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And let's finish up here. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. I just want to take a second to say that I appreciate the support immensely. If there's anything I can do better with these guide videos, if there's a format in particular you guys like, or anything like that, please let me know. Figuring out how to make these guides stand out versus other content creators so that you are more incentivized to click mine is a bit of a difficult art for me. I'm trying to figure out what to trim out, what to buffer up, you know, add more of. And if you have any feedback, please let me know. I'm really new to this. The guides are something I struggle with, even though I love teaching to death. These big topics I'm very passionate about. Like I love Ivara. I love this Warframe. I just struggle with making the videos concise enough, which is just a skill I'm learning, but also I want to know what you guys think is important in a Warframe guide. So please let me know. But yeah, Ivara's super fun, man. I mean, it's a playstyle that's very unique to her. You know, Cyto9 has given her some competition, but still I think she's incredibly unique. And hopefully you guys get her and have fun. But yeah, thank you guys so much for the support. It means the entire world to me. I'm going to try to get more consistent videos out. But yeah, if you have, again, engage with me, please. Help me out. If there's anything in your guides that you want that you feel like other content creators are not doing, now is the time to let me know so I can help you out. But thank you guys so much love, so much love, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.